What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Martian MMA podcast. I am your host, and my name is John. And this week we are back with episode 57, where we will be analyzing and predicting the UFC Russia card going down this Saturday afternoon from St. Petersburg, Russia. The prelims kick off to this at 10 a.m. Eastern, with the main card starting at 1 p.m. Eastern. And it features 12 fights on this fight card, so we will be analyzing and predicting all 12 of those fights very shortly here. But first, I would be remiss if I did not mention the UFC pay-per-view that went down this past weekend. Typically, we recap the last week's card at the end of the Martian MMA program, but with how sensational the co-main and main events were, it would be a travesty to not mention these at the beginning of the program. Just those two fights, the co-main event between Israel Adesanya and Kelvin Gastelum, and the main event between Dustin Poirier and Max Holloway, were just two of the best back-to-back fights you could ever ask for in MMA. You know, there are certain times when there was, Tyron Woodley versus Stephen Thompson, and then McGregor versus Alvarez at 205. At 189 there was McDonald and Lawler, and then McGregor and Mendez. And then there are certain times when there are epic co-main and main events. Another one is Miesha Tate and Holly Holm and McGregor and Nate Diaz, all those McGregor events. But this one was special for that same reason. The co-main and main event were just spectacular back-to-back fights. I would say the co-main event was probably the better fight, a little more competitive, had more grappling involved with it. It definitely had more back-and-forth moments than the main event. Incredible performance from Kelvin and Israel in the co-main event. Kelvin had some success early, knocked down Israel the first round. Israel came back and won the second and third round, and then Kelvin comes back and evens it up at 2 rounds apiece in the fourth round, leaving the fifth round up for the winner. And Israel Adesanya comes up big, scoring the 10-8 round in the fifth round and winning that fight via 48-46 decision. And then in the main event, we had Dustin Poirier I'd say for the most part, outclassed Max Holloway. Surprisingly, snapping Max Holloway's 13-fight win streak. Poirier's boxing was just on point. His power, his speed, his accuracy, I think all of it was better than Max Holloway that night, and he just put on the performance of a lifetime to capture that interim title. Really, I wouldn't say a dominant performance from Poirier, but he was in control for most of the fight. He did win 4 rounds on all 3 judges' scorecards, and my scorecard as well. I gave Max Holloway the third round, but I would give all 4 of the rounds to Poirier. He was in control. The power was a big difference, just like I expected it to be. I expected, Holloway to have a lot of success in this fight, but I was worried about the power. And I honestly think that the power and size of Poirier was the biggest difference in this fight. It's just Poirier's power punches had a little more pop behind them. He was the bigger man in the cage, and it showed when it came to the scorecard. So that'll be all for the recap for now. Maybe I'll recap the last couple fights at the end of the podcast. But with that being said, we're going to jump right into analyzing and predicting all 12 fights on the UFC Russia St. Petersburg card going down this Saturday afternoon. That's Eastern Standard Time. I imagine the Europeans and everyone internationally will have a normal time card, while the Americans have to have the stranger timing with this card for a change. Starting things off in the lightweight division, we have Magomed Mustafaev, who is 13-3, taking on Rafael Fiziev, who is 6-0. The opening betting line for this one was Magomed Mustafaev as the -180 favorite to Fiziev at +140. Since then, the line has flipped. We're now seeing Fiziev at -125 to Mustafaev at +105 over on our affiliated sportsbook 5 Dimes. Interesting line movement. I don't really blame the people for jumping on the side of Fiziev in this one. I think at +140 he was definitely a good price, but I don't know if I would full-on trust him as a favorite in this spot, making his UFC debut. He's only got 6 pro fights, mostly a Muay Thai fighter, and he kind of carries over that Muay Thai stance into MMA. He, has that typical, light on the front leg style, heavy on the back leg, throwing a lot of leg kicks, teeps, knees, and elbows. He's definitely willing to trade in the pocket. He's confident in his chin. He's, his defense isn't the best, but then he's got some good power, though. So sometimes when an opponent is willing to stand there and trade, he is very content to do the same. So that could be a problem in this one. Mustafaev, I don't really rate his striking too highly, though. He did have a nice striking finish over Joe Proctor not too long ago with some nice knees and kicks in that one. He really attacked the body of Joe Proctor in that fight. But Mustafaev hasn't fought in almost 3 years. It's been November of 2016 was his last fight. Seems like an eternity ago. And that fight he actually lost to Kevin Lee in that one pretty decisively too. Kevin Lee really just exposed Mustafaev's weakness, which is the ground game. Mustafaev got taken down easily. He got his guard passed. He got put in some really bad positions. He escaped sometimes. He did, get mounted and then escaped the mount, or he got his back taken and then defended it once or twice. But eventually, Kevin Lee was just nonstop, went back to those takedowns, and ended up getting the back one last time and finishing Mustafaev via rear naked choke. So neither of these gentlemen's ground games are too good. I expect this one to be contested mostly on the feet. And when I'm thinking about who's going to be the better striker, I got to go with the Muay Thai specialist. This guy's fought, pro in Thailand before. Spends a lot of time at Phuket Top Team. He is the more active fighter. Mustafaev, I expect to be coming off that 2.5-year layoff, coming off a little bit rusty, and I expect Fiziev to, test that chin early and make it a firefight. So I got to side with Fiziev in this one. But in terms of the betting window, where the line is at now, I think it's a pass on both ends. I don't think you can trust Fiziev as a favorite, as a dog, I don't think you can trust Fiziev as a favorite, and I don't think there's much value on Mustafaev as a dog. But what I'm seeing right now is I'm seeing Fiziev on Intertops as plus 125 still. If that's a real line, you guys should jump on that if any of you are on that bookie. But the pick is going to be Fiziev to get this one done, probably by knockout. Next fight in the light heavyweight division, we have, I never looked at this gentleman's first name before, Gazmiradia Antagulov taking on Mikhail Olachechuk. We're just going to call him Antagulov from now because his first name is just way too long to pronounce. So this is a Russian event, ladies and gentlemen, so don't be surprised to hear some wacky pronunciations on this podcast. So Olachechuk opened minus 170 in this one to Antagulov at plus 130. Right now, we are seeing more action coming in McCall's way, pushing him to minus 220 to Antagulov at plus 180. So I think this fight is pretty easy to break down. Antagulov has a few minutes of cardio, honestly. He is looking to take you down. He's looking to sub you as quick as he can because he's very muscular. He does not have good cardio. He doesn't have good striking. And if he cannot take Olachechuk down early and tap him out early, I think Olachechuk will cruise to victory in this one. It's not it's still competitive though, because Olachechuk's takedown defense isn't the best. We haven't seen much of it in the UFC. We saw him take on Khalil Roundtree, and then not a grappler in any stretch of the means. Then he popped by USADA for a year, and then he came back against John Vellante, also not a grappler, and actually knocked out Vellante early in that one with a body shot. So we really haven't seen his ground game too much. The last time we saw his ground game was against a gentleman named Tomasz Januszewski, some Polish gentleman, who that fight was in 2015, and Tomasz was able to take Olachechuk down and hold him down for a couple of rounds in that fight. And, he eventually, Januszewski eventually gassed out, and then Olachechuk finished him in that fight. But still, his takedown defense and his ground game was definitely a little bit exposed in that one. So Antagulov has an opportunity, a small window to take him down and tap him out early, because he will be the bigger fighter in that cage. I think Olachechuk is actually a pretty small light heavyweight. But if he's not able to get Oleksiejczuk down and submit him within the first 3 to 5 minutes, I think that Oleksiejczuk should take over easily. And then if Antigulov doesn't quit and get TKO'd, I think Oleksiejczuk will outstrike him to a decision. But I think Oleksiejczuk will knock him out eventually, probably in the second round of this one, maybe even the first. Antigulov took Ian Cutelaba down a couple of times, couldn't get the submission, and literally just rolled over and quit in the first round. And he did eat some big shots and get TKO'd in that one, but he quit in that fight. You could hear his breathing from the camera. Like you could hear, like the cameraman was a couple of feet away, and you could hear him puffing and puffing. So the pick in this one is going to be Oleksiejczuk. I think his takedown defense has improved. He is a smart enough fighter to avoid that takedown of Antigulov, and then he will punish Antigulov on the feet, getting the TKO victory in this one. So pick is going to be Oleksiejczuk via second round knockout. Next fight in the heavyweight division, we have Marcin Tybura taking on Shamil Abdurmanikov. Tybura is 17-4. Abdurmanikov is 19-4. The opening betting line for this one was Tybura, the favorite, at -185 to Abdurmanikov at +145. Right now, line margins have tightened up. We're seeing Tybura -145 to Shamil at +125. So I definitely don't disagree with the odds in this one. These guys are pretty similar to one another. I think that they're both grappling is their specialty for the both of them. I'd say that Tybura has that slight edge in striking. They both can strike. They both have moments of success on the feet, but they also both can get tagged on the feet from time to time too. So Shamil got tagged by I want to say Stefan Struve, but no, I think that was Tybura. Tybura got tagged by Stefan Struve by a front kick. Tybura was largely in control of that fight with the wrestling and the takedowns, but Struve was able to sneak a head kick through the guard of Tybura and rock him in the second round of that fight. But Tybura won that fight pretty comfortably. Shamil's looking to take you down. He's looking to catch a kick, take you down, and then just stall on top. He did that against Anja Arlovsky. He did it against Walt Harris, Anthony Hamilton, a lot of guys. He'll wait on the feet. He'll let you strike him. He'll catch the kick and then just try to sit on top of you in your guard and maybe have a little ground and pound and just win the round. But his fight against Arlovsky, absolutely painful to sit through. That one was just such a boring fight. Abdurmanikov is doing the least possible to win that fight, but he has had lapses of striking where he's looked good. He knocked out Chase Sherman with some nice punches in that one. But he's also Shamil has also lost via the grappling. He got taken down, mounted, and then ground and pound by Tim Johnson. Did not look very helpful off his back at all. Johnson was able to get that top position and pound him out pretty easily in that one. So Tybura is definitely going to look to replicate that same game plan. I'd say Tybura has the better wrestling. I'd say he's the more agile, the better heavyweight. Definitely, he's got the better cardio for sure. He actually finished Luis Henrique in the third round of their fight after a really grueling type of fight. A lot of grappling in that fight, a lot of back and forth positions, and Tybura still had the cardio to finish Henrique in the third round via ground and pound. So I give the slight edge to Tybura. He's the only problem I can see for Tybura in this one is if he tries to throw kicks on the feet versus Shamil. Shamil's going to catch a kick, dump him on his back, and then sit on top of him for a round, and that's going to set the tone for the whole fight. It's going to be hard for Tybura to recover after getting laid on top of by that big body of Shamil. And he could possibly lose the fight if he gets taken down one time. So if Marcin Tybura fights smart, sticks to the boxing on the feet, sets up his takedowns well, keeps top position versus Shamil, I see him winning this fight. If he gets mounted, he has a good chance of ground and pound TKOing Abdurmanikov in this one. But I don't think that will happen. I think that it'll be pretty competitive. I think that both guys will go back and forth with the takedowns in this one. I see Tybura getting a slight edge, in this one, 29-28 decision type of fight. So the pick is going to be Tybura by decision. In the next fight, in the lightweight division, we have Alexander Yakovlev, who is 24-9-1, taking on Alex Leco da Silva, who is 20-1. The opening betting line for this one was Yakalaev as the favorite at -132, De Silva at -110. Also a slight favorite in this one. But right now we are seeing over on 5 Dimes much more money come in on Yakalaev, pushing him down to -155. De Silva is up to +135 in this one. So right off the bat, De Silva's record says 20-1, but my man is 21-0. I can tell you that. Pretty confidently. He got, I wouldn't say he got robbed totally versus Jakub Kowalkiewicz, but I'd say it was definitely a bad decision. I thought that Alex Silva won rounds 1 and 3 of that fight versus Kowalkiewicz. He threatened with an armbar off his back in the round 1 of that fight. He got taken down, but he threw up an armbar right away, and it was deep, man. It was really, really deep, and I don't understand how this Jakub Sky arm didn't snap in that armbar, honestly. It wasn't the most technically sound armbar. Like, there were a few things he could have done better to finish the armbar. Just from like a blue belt's perspective in jiu-jitsu, and just pinching his knees together would have probably done it. But Kowalkiewicz withstood that armbar, won rounds 2, but I thought Silva came back and won round 3. He dropped Kowalkiewicz with a head kick in that round. His power and his cardio looked pretty good in that round 3 versus Kowalkiewicz. So he's picked up a couple early wins. Most of his wins are by stoppage, but that fight against Kowalkiewicz proves that he has the cardio to go the full 15 minutes. He can lose a round. He can come back. He can fight off his back a little bit. He definitely gets taken down too much. He does not pay much attention to the takedowns. He definitely can do a better job defending the takedowns in this one, and that's where Yakalaev is going to look to take this fight for sure. Yakalaev does have a very good ground game. I'd say he out-grappled Gray Maynard in their fight. He's got a very talented ground game. He also can strike too. He had a real nice knockout of George Sullivan not too long ago, but another problem with Yakalaev, he fought on the exact same card as what's his name? Homeboy I just talked about, Magomed Mustafaev. He hasn't fought in 2.5 years, and his last fight was a loss where he looked pretty bad. Honestly, he was fighting Zach Cummings in that fight. Not exactly the most physically imposing, scary guy, but Yakalaev fought scared in that fight. He was constantly moving back. He wasn't throwing anything. He looked uncomfortable. He looked like he didn't have much will to win, not much aggression at all, and he got taken down and submitted by Zach Cummings in that one. Now, Cummings is a black belt. He has good submissions. And Yakalaev is hard to submit. He went to full 15 minutes with Damian Maia before, so and Kamaru Usman as well. He's gone the distance with a lot of talented fighters over the course of his career, but Zach Cummings was able to submit him in that one. So it's a tough fight because Lecco de Silva is making his UFC debut, and Yakalaev hasn't fought in 2.5 years. So you got to be weary on the betting window in any situation in this one. I think when this fight is over, if you bet on the loser, you're gonna kick yourself. But it's still an opportunity for a bet. I'd say it's a 50-50 type of fight. Honestly, I was impressed with De Silva. 21-0. He's definitely ready for the UFC. He could make some big improvements stepping up to the big show in this one. We've seen guys, the example I used was Julian Paiva. He was an 18-0 or 19-0 Brazilian fighter who I did not rate that highly. I thought his wins weren't over too impressive competition, and I thought that he would come in and get blown out of the water in his debut against Kai Kara France, but he showed the fuck up in that fight and arguably won that fight against France in his home country. So I think De Silva has a chance of doing the same thing here, showing up in Russia and Yakalaev's home country, and seizing this opportunity big time against the guy coming off that 2.5-year layoff. Yakalaev's getting up there in age. He's 34. He did not look good in his last fight. He had that 2.5-year layoff. There's no fucking way you can lay favorite chalk on Yakalaev in the spot, especially at -155. If you were able to get in there where the line opened up, -130, I get it, but like -150, I'm telling you, you're crazy if you're betting that on Yakalaev. There's just no way to trust him. So, I could see passing on this fight, but when I'm saying the fight is 50-50, and the odds are saying that one fighter's implied probability are 42.5%, I get the bet area in me has to side with Alex De Silva in this one. So I'm gonna place a small wager on De Silva. I'm not gonna go out and advise anybody to do the same, but I'm confident making a small stab in this one. I just think that that layoff of Yakalaev is going to be a huge deficit for him to overcome, and I think Lecco De Silva is the opportunistic, athletic type of fighter to possibly take advantage of the situation. So the pick is going to be Lecco De Silva. Moving on to the next fight, which takes place in the welterweight division, we have Sultan Aliyev, who is 14-3, taking on Kita Nakamura, who is 34-9-2. The opening betting line for this one was Sultan Aliyev, the -130 favorite, to Nakamura as the -110 slight underdog in this one. Right now, we are seeing line margins tighten up. Aliyev at -115 to Nakamura at -105. So pretty much a pick 'em. It's, according to the odds, the closest fight on the card, and I would agree. I would say it's a pretty close fight. Both of these gentlemen aren't the the highest level competition, but I'd say they're both solid fighters. Somewhere around the middle to low rankings of welterweight. So Sultan Aliyev, he's a strong motherfucker. He took down Bohan Velokovic. And he wrestled him to a decision, just took him down and stalled on top position for that entire fight. Kind of a wrestle fuck type of fight, but you got to do what you got to do to get the win sometimes. And then his last fight against Warley Alves, another boring type of fight. A lot of it was contested against the cage, a lot of clinching, not much striking at distance, and then eventually he ended up the fight being stopped in between rounds 2 and 3 because Sultan Aliyev had a hematoma on his eye the size of a golf ball, man. But by the start of round 2 to the end of round 2, he full on grew a golf ball out of his eye. So the doctors were definitely right in stopping that fight. But he just didn't show much in that fight. It's hard to get a feel of where his skills are at. The dude has fought. He fought. Once in 2014, once in 2015, once in 2016, not at all in 2017, and then once in 2018, going 1-2 in the past 5 years. So I actually kind of side with Kita Nakamura based on that fact alone, because just Sultan Aliyev, he hasn't really showed anything that he's capable of really going out there and winning a fight at this point in his career. He did, like I said, take down Bohan Velokovic and wrestle fuck him to a decision 2.5 years ago. But what have you done for me lately? Kita Nakamura, on the other hand, he looked pretty good in his last fight against Salim Touhari. Touhari is a pretty low level guy. And it's not like Nakamura blew him out of the water in that fight, but he won it pretty comfortably, I'd say. He's a counter puncher. Nakamura, he's pretty low output. He's looking for you to strike first, and then he's looking to counter off of that. He can hit offensive takedowns, and he can box a little bit too. His boxing defense is not the best though. Versus Anthony Rocco Martin, he was getting tagged in that fight. He got hit with I'd say 5 to 10 solid right hands by Rocco Martin. A couple of them rocked him pretty bad. A few of them actually dropped him. And but Nakamura, his grappling is really impressive. He can hit offensive takedowns. He can chain together takedowns. And he actually had a really, really competitive fight with Zaleski dos Santos, which was mostly contested in the grappling. He lost that fight via unanimous decision, but I thought that you could have arguably given that fight to Kita Nakamura. It was that close. I didn't score round for round. I wasn't watching 100% with all my focus. So I'm not gonna go out there and say that he should have won that decision. But it was certainly a very, very close contest where you can see how skilled Nakamura is on the ground. And we don't really have much of a sense of where Sultan Aliyev's ground game is, besides his defensive wrestling game. We've seen him. he win fights on top, and when he can get top position and keep it. But in terms of getting put on his back, we really haven't seen much from him. So, I'm just gonna slightly side with the guy in Nakamura who has been more active, who has won fights lately, who has fought the better competition in the UFC, and who has beaten the better competition as well. So I think that Nakamura wins the striking exchanges in this one. He's got some good boxing, and I think that if the fight ends up on the floor, I think it will be Nakamura in top position, possibly winning the rounds, and even getting a submission. Nakamura's got a lot of submissions on his record, and it's not totally out of the realm of possibilities that he could get a tap in this one. So the pick is going to be Nakamura, probably to get it done by decision. Next fight in the featherweight division, we have Movsar Evloev taking on Seung Woo Choi. Evloev is 10-0 and Choi is 7-1. The opening betting line for this one was Evloev as the minus 305 favorite to Choi at plus 225. Right now we are seeing Evloev minus 335 to Choi at plus 275. So rightfully so, Evloev has been an impressive prospect so far. M1 champion. He's got 5-round experience. He's got an incredible ground game. I'd say his striking is pretty solid too, but his ground game is really where he's most comfortable. He does have moments when he's pretty sloppy on the feet. I will admit that. I actually will go out there and say that Choi should be the I wouldn't say far superior striker, but the much better striker in this matchup. Choi's got that Muay Thai style. He's got a really nice front kick. He's got decent boxing as well, but his boxing defense, man, it's not good. He's got a little bit of a predictable type of style. Where he reacts to shots in the same type of way. So if his opponent is feinting, they might be able to time that knockout shot, which is what happened in Choi's lone knockout loss. And he did go back and avenge that loss to Jae-Woon Kim, but in the first round of their fight back in 2017, he got floored with a right hand and knocked out in just 36 seconds into their fight. And he eventually did avenge that loss, but it wasn't easy. That loss, I think Woon Kim still had his number in that fight, and then Woon Kim was able to rock Choi with a punch, and he got way too overzealous. He rushed in, and Choi hit him with a counter punch right on the button and put his lights out with one shot. So Choi's definitely got some power in his hands, and I've been impressed with his kicking style as well. And his ground game is fairly unknown though. We saw him have some offensive grappling, a little bit of stuff takedowns in his fight versus a gentleman named Rocky Lee. That was in, I think, his fourth pro fight. And, he looked pretty decent in that one. He defended a grappler's takedowns, and he was able to win the fight in the striking realm with that fight. So the only problem is I do not think that Choi, no matter how good his ground game is, even though we haven't seen it, it's going to be tough for him to stop the takedowns of Evloev. Evloev is, relentless with the takedown. He's got some judo takedowns. He can take you down in a plethora of different ways, whether it's throws or trips or double legs, single legs. He can chain takedowns together. He can scramble like crazy. He can take your back. He can go top position. He'll hit you with some powerful ground and pound, man. This watching this gentleman on tape has been a pleasure, man. I'm telling you, his grappling is already up there with some of the best in the UFC. And I can definitely see Evloev being a problem at 145. Saying that without having the dude not even seen him fight in the UFC yet. I'm actually going to make the claim and say that he could be a top 10 featherweight by the end of the year if he gets a couple more fights in. Now, Evloev, I'm pretty sure all of his fights have been in Russia. Which is not a good sign. I like to see him get out of Russia, travel around the world and start, make sure his visas are all in check and make sure he can, become a star in the UFC. Because we've seen a lot of Russian guys who've had great careers, who've had incredible talents, but they don't have that visa, and they're stuck fighting 1 or 2 times a year in Japan or in Russia or in Germany or Poland. They're not getting that exposure they need from getting in that American and going to Brazil or going wherever. So hopefully Evloev gets out of Russia and starts fighting all around the globe soon. But I think that this fight will be, if it's on the feet, I think it'll be close. But I don't expect it to be on the feet much. I think Evloev will close the distance pretty much right away. and look to take Choi down and control this fight on the floor. And no matter where, if Choi tries getting back up to the feet, I think Evil will scramble and take his back. It's just going to be a tough task for for Choi to defend the grappling of Evil. Choi's best shot is to, try to knock out Evil in round one. While the fight starts on the feet, he's got to make his shots count, and he's got to try to rock Evil early, because if not, he should be in for a rough night of grappling. So the pick is going to be Evil. Let's get this one done let's go by a second round submission in this one. Alright, we have already made it to the main card portion of the UFC Russia card, and we are starting things off in the middleweight division. We got Krzysztof Jotko, who is 19-4, taking on Alan Amadakovsky, who is 8-0. The opening betting line for this one was Jotko -130 to Amadakovsky at -110. Since then, a lot more money coming in Krzysztof Jotko's way, pushing him down to -175. While Amadakovsky is up to +155 in this one. It's pretty surprising. I think Jotko's coming off of 3 losses in a row. Not against stiff competition nonetheless, but he hasn't looked that impressive in those fights. The Dave Branch fight was an absolute snoozer. Push against the cage, clinch fest. Uriah Hall, he dropped Hall early in that fight. Looked like he was on his way to winning via knockout. And Hall was able to recover, and Hall knocked him out in the second round with a massive overhand right. Absolutely floored Jotko and put him out. And then in his most recent fight against Brad Tavares, another fight where he just looked lackluster. He hasn't fought in a year. He finished in the third round of that fight. And then, it just never looked like he was too aggressive in there. That fight with Brad Tavares was just a very low output, push against the cage type of fight. But Jotko, he can hit offensive takedowns. He definitely has a good ground game. He has flash moments on the feet where he looks good, like when he knocked down Uriah Hall, and he can defend a takedown pretty well against the cage. But when he throws his kicks, that's when he gets taken down. That's what happened to him against Tavares. Tavares just caught a leg kick and put him on his back in that one. But he has some good sub defense, and he's got good ground and pound. So Jotko is definitely a flawed fighter in some aspects, but he also does a lot of things right. And he's been in the UFC for a while. He's struggled lately, like I said, on that 3-fight win streak. But before that, he was on a 6-1 run in the UFC, beating some pretty stiff competition along the way too. So Jotko is definitely going to be looking to get back on track in this one. But he's facing Amadakovsky, who's making his UFC debut. Man, taping this guy was weird. He's got a lot of weird fights, where his opponents either get knocked out early or they get an injury. There's one fight with, I think the guy's name was Badr Madoff, and the guy throws a leg kick at him 15 seconds into the fight, and he tears his knee out of the socket or something like that. And he looks at the ref and he says, "I'm done." He spins around throwing the leg kick, and it just tears his knee right out the socket or something like that. Just a hilarious fight. And he's fought very low competition. 0-5, 0-1, 3-0, 0-0. His best win was over a guy named Ibrahim Main, which was a 12-second knockout in that one. So it's he's definitely got some power. We've seen him floor dudes with some shots on the feet. We've seen him hit some offensive takedowns too. He's strong, man. This guy will muscle you to the ground, and he can smash you with some ground and pound, and he also can throw some subs off his back if he gets taken down. I forget which fight he got taken down in, but I wrote that in my notes, and it says he has some subs off his back, so we're gonna assume that he does. I don't think that he will be the one to submit Jotko in this one. It's just a tough type of fight, where one guy's making his UFC debut, one guy's coming off of 3 losses in a row. There's actually a couple fights in this card like that. Like I've been mentioning them already. The Yakalaev and Da Silva fight and the Mustafaev and Fiziev fight are 2 fights where guys coming off long layoffs and facing a guy who's coming off of a UFC debut. So these fights are hard to pick, man. It's definitely hard to be confident when you're laying chalk debuting fighters or guys who haven't looked good in so long in this one. So, this is definitely going to be a dog or pass type situation. I don't think you can trust Jocko at minus 175, in this spot. He hasn't won a fight in so long, It's just going to be tough to trust him at that much of a favorite price. And Amedovski's coming in here, probably coming off of that good cycle not too long ago. And he's going to be coming in here muscle to the motherfucking gills. And he's going to be looking to I'd say he's probably going to try to take Jocko down and then try to ground and pound Jocko in this one. I think that Jocko doesn't like getting hit. He's kind of a chinny type of fighter, so Amedovski's going to look to test that chin early and try to get Jocko out of there, but he could definitely gas out. We have not really seen him go the distance. He hasn't fought past round 2, actually, so Jocko is going to be looking to take this one into the deeper later rounds. He's looking to take Amedovski down, put him on his back, and neutralize him. And I think that's what will end up happening. I think Jocko will probably win this one via that grinding, boring, push against the cage, clinchy type of fight. And he'll win this one 29-28. But, Russian judges, you never know in this one. So I would not leave it in the hands of the judges. But I'm going to slightly lean with Jocko in this one. But in terms of the betting window, I'd say plus 155. If you're in the daredevil type of mood, I wouldn't talk you down off a ledge on making a small play on Amedovski in this one. So pick is going to be Jocko. Next fight in the women's flyweight division, we have Antonina Shevchenko, who is 7-0, taking on Roxanne Modafferi, who is 22-15. The opening betting line for this one was Shevchenko at minus 385 to Modafferi at plus 265. Right now, we are seeing Shevchenko minus 350 to Modafferi at plus 290. So definitely two-way action coming in on this fight. A lot of dog money is coming in on Modafferi just because she's got a little more. Both of them have got a little bit of name recognition. Because Modafferi is obviously a veteran, been in the game for 15 so years, and Shevchenko obviously is the sister of the champion Valentina Shevchenko. One of the most popular fighters on the roster, and both of these women are straight up veterans. Even though Shevchenko has only 7 fights, she's been fighting since 2002. Her MMA debut was in 2002. Who knows when she made her kickboxing debut? Maybe before that. Modafferi making her MMA debut in 2003. So these women have been around. With that being said, though, neither of them are at elite level of MMA. I'd say they both. I'd say Modafferi has is less technical. I'd say Shevchenko is by far the better striker. And I'd say Modafferi is by far the better grappler. So it'll be interesting to see where this type of fight plays out. Shevchenko, her Muay Thai, man, is great. Her clinch, her kicks, she snaps high kicks up like wicked fast. I think she might even throw high kicks better than her sister. Shevchenko is more of like a body kick, leg kick. Valentina is more like a body kick, leg kick type of girl. Likes spinning kicks a lot. But Shevchenko will whip up a high kick really nice. Those question mark kicks. And her Thai clinch, man, her opponent Nivara on the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series, man, Shevchenko got that Thai plum, and Nivara just could not get out of that. Shevchenko would just brutalized her in the clinch. Nivara was trying to take that fight to the ground, which is what Modafferi is going to do, and Shevchenko was able to easily stuff the takedowns in Nivara, but those takedowns by Nivara were very poorly set up. They did not have much, drive behind them. They didn't have much momentum behind them. I think that Modafferi sets up her shots much better and has better wrestling than Nivara, so don't take that fight, too seriously. So Modafferi, her striking, man, it's weird, Jimmy Smith described it as herky-jerky type of style. Man, that's a great way to describe it. She's constantly moving her body in a weird way and jerking her shoulders around and moving her head in all different types of spots. She's trying to use head movement, but she doesn't really have much real technique behind her boxing. Barb Honchak was actually landing some decent punches on her before Modafferi was able to take her down, mount her, and then pound her out with elbows in that fight. So Modafferi is definitely going to be looking to take this fight to the floor. She's got the better ground game for sure. She's got good takedowns, got good top pressure. She can hit submissions, and she can use some ground and pound too. To her top mount, her pressure is really good. So if she's even though the shots against Hornchak weren't the most devastating ground and pound shots, when you're on top and you're landing 30 elbows to your opponent's head while they're covering up, you're forcing the refs to stop that fight. So, Shevchenko can definitely get stuck on bottom like that in this situation. I think that if Shevchenko does not play this one extremely smart on the feet, then there's a good chance that she does get taken down and she loses this fight via, Modafferi having the edge in grappling. But if Shevchenko uses her Muay Thai to fight to the smartest of her abilities, I think she will win this fight. She'll use her teep kick and her, her body kicks, head kicks to stay at distance. Try not to get her kicks caught by Modafferi and get taken down in that one. But if she jabs her way, she's constantly moving back and throwing teeps and staying out of range, staying at kicking range. I think Shevchenko definitely has the ability to win this fight. But in the betting window, man, if you're laying that minus 350 chalk on a fighter who's 1-0 in the UFC, man, you're crazy. She beat Ji Yeon Kim, man. Anybody listening to this podcast can beat Ji Yeon Kim in a fight. No disrespect, Mrs. Kim. I know you're an avid listener, but minus 350. She's actually a bigger favorite in this fight than she was versus Ji Yeon Kim. Man, how dare you disrespect Roxanne Modafferi like that? She's the cosplay queen, has been in this sport for decades. You can't disrespect her at plus 290 at that. So I definitely don't diss a stab at Modafferi. I actually think it's worth it to stab at her at these almost 3-1 odds versus Shevchenko in this one. So I do think Shevchenko should be the favorite, maybe minus 200. I would get, Roxanne plus 170 seems more appropriate, but plus 290, man, that's a value bet all day on Modafferi. So the pick is going to be Shevchenko by decision, but I would not surprise me at all if Modafferi wins this one. She can win it in more ways too. I think she can, like I said, she can take get that ground and pound stoppage like she did versus Honchuk. She can maybe take Shevchenko's back or look for an armbar from mount. Or Modafferi can just win 3 rounds with their grappling on top control and win that decision. So I like Modafferi's chances in this one. I'm definitely going to be rooting for her to pull off the upset. Next fight in the light heavyweight division, we got Dev Clark, who is 9-3, taking on Ivan Shaitkov, who is 16-0-1. The opening betting line for this one was Shaitkov, the minus 185, favorite to Clark at plus 145. Since then, line margins have tightened up on 5 dimes a little bit. We're seeing Shaitkov at minus 160 to Clark at plus 140. Now, this Shaitkov guy is one of the biggest human specimens that have come into the UFC in the past couple years. This dude is absolutely juiced to the gills. No doubt about it, man. This guy's neck is 6 inches thick. I'm not talking about, from, ear to ear. I'm not talking about how a normal person's neck is 6 inches wide. I'm talking about like the back of his neck is 6 inches raised off his shoulders. It's look up Ivan Shaitkov on Google right now and tell me this dude isn't on all the sauce. He's been tested by USADA 2 times. This is his UFC debut. He probably got hit that last cycle in 2018 before coming over to the UFC, and then getting everything out of his system before this fight. His last win was over Thiago Silva, UFC veteran, in December of last year. And he actually armbarred Thiago Silva, who was a well-established grappler of his own right, and impressive victory in that one. So Shaitkov, man, he's got some skills. He's definitely no slouch. Despite the fact that he's juiced to the gills, I'm not taking away anything from the guy. I actually think it plays in his favor, because he can hit offensive takedowns. He can smash you with ground and pound. And he can knock you out on the feet as well. He throws with massive power. But there's also a lot of red flags about Shaitkov. Let me tell you that. So he's 30 years old, first of all, but he looks 38. That's what a lifetime worth of juicing will do to you. He gassed out hard versus Germino dos Santos. You know, watch that fight, Ivan Shaitkov versus Germino dos Santos. What a fun fucking fight that was. Shaitkov hit him with some spinning elbow in the first round that absolutely floored dos Santos. Looked like he was going to knock him out. And then he gassed out hard in the second round, and dos Santos was able to win the second and third rounds in that fight. And that fight actually went to a draw. So that's Shaitkov's one winless fight on his record. And that fight showed a lot about him. That he, if he doesn't get that early knockout or that early submission, he's in trouble. You know, he does have some, you know, some decision wins on his record. I'll give him that. You know, over some decent competition as well. Some guys with really good records, but they're all type of like journeyman type of fighter. You know, Christian Mbumbu, 21-8. You know, Rodney Wallace, 26-13. Antonio Silva, 19-10. You know, type of guys who are around the sport forever, have a lot of wins, a lot of losses. But you know, beating them is no walk in the park either. But most of his wins are over, you know, over the hump type of fighters. You know, Fabio Maldonado, Thiago Silva. I think that Devin Clark is going to be probably one of the tougher opponents that Shaitkov has come across in his career. You know, Clark is nowhere near a high level opponent by any means, but I think that he's going to present some problems for Shaitkov in this one. I think that you know, we haven't seen Shaitkov defense. We have seen him defensive grapple, and it did not look good. Dos Santos was able to take him down in round 2 and, you know, keep Shaitkov on his back in that round, and Shaitkov was just so gassed out that he couldn't do anything about it. So regardless of how this fight goes, man, look up Dev Clark round 3 or round 2 of the props right now on 5 Dimes. Let's see what the odds are on them. Oh yeah, the odds makers know. Round 2 plus 775, round 3 plus 1400. Man, those are certainly worthy stabs, because if Clark is able to withstand that early storm of Shaitkov, then I think that he could really take over this fight rounds 2 and 3 with his wrestling. You know, just taking Shaitkov down, putting him on his back, and keeping him there. You know, Clark has won fights via WrestleFuck before, you know, against dangerous strikers too. In that fight against Mike Rodriguez, man, he took him down and won a unanimous decision, pretty much just WrestleFucking him in that fight. So he has struggled sometimes though versus Jan Blachowicz. He got rocked with a punch in that one. He also got rocked in the fight versus Alexander Rakic. You know, Clark doesn't have bad striking. You know, he wings shots. He hits hard, but he actually can rock his opponents a couple times too. He actually looked like he hit Blachowicz and Rakic with some good shots that might have had him stunned. But after he hits you, he has no composure. He sees that he hurts you, and he rushes in with his hands low and his chin up, and then he gets countered himself. That's the exact same thing that happened versus Rakic and with Blachowicz. You know, he hurt them. He rushed in, then he got hurt himself, and then he got either tapped out or finished via strikes. So if this one is on the feet and Clark lands that early punch, and look for him to rush in and get countered and put out by Shaitkov. But you know, I expect Shaitkov to come out blitzing early in this one, and you know, looking to get Rakic out of there in the first round. But I don't think he's going to do it, man. I don't think that Shaitkov really has the composure, has the technique, or just the overall skill to get Clark out of there in the first round. I think that Clark will still be there in rounds 2, and I think that Clark will either take over rounds 2 and 3 and win a decision, or he will finish Shaitkov in rounds 2 or round 3 of this fight. So Shaitkov definitely has a path to victory. It's going to be that early finish via submission or via knockout. He would probably look to take Clark down and look to get a submission or look to get a ground and pound finish in this one. But Clark's got that good wrestling base. I don't think he's going to be easy to take down. I think, like I said, he will be one of the harder opponents that Shaitkov has had to face, and I think that Shaitkov will lose his UFC debut in this one. But if I were Dev Clark, man, I would be chasing that finish heavy in rounds 2 and 3, because I would not want to let Shaitkov have an impressive round 1, and then I slightly edge rounds 2 and 3, and then I think I win a decision, but then I get screwed by the Russian judges. So Clark better chase that finish if he's on top in rounds 2 and 3. The next fight is taking place in the heavyweight division, where we have Sergey Pavlovich, who is 12-1, taking on Marcelo Golm, who is 6-2. the opening betting line for this one opened up Pavlovich, the minus 300 favorite, to Marcelo Golm at plus 220 right now over on our affiliated sportsbook 5 Dimes. We are seeing Pavlovich minus 255 to Golm at plus 215. So Marcelo Golm actually bounced up to plus 250 at one point in this fight. Man, I really don't get it, man. I'm going to go out and just say it right now. Marcelo Golm should be the favorite in this fight. I don't advise plays too much. I don't tell you who to bet. I try to, just give you my opinion on everything. I don't, tell you bet on this person or don't bet on this person. But I actually do say, I do say don't bet on this person a lot. But I don't go out there and tell you what to do with your money often. But in this spot, Marcelo Golm, man, I definitely advise you to go in your sports book and to place a little wager on Marcelo Golm. And let me explain why. In Sergey Pavlovich's Russian fights, man, he fought in Russia in the ACB promotion, the Fight Nights Global promotion, and he looked great. Actually, mostly Fight Nights Global, not ACB, excuse me. He looked great. He was knocking people out. He looked fit. He was muscular. He had a six-pack. He was throwing crisp, clean punches with a real power behind him. He was patient. He was waiting for opportunities to present themselves and then capitalizing on them. He looked great coming in. He came in to his fight against Alistair Overeem in his UFC debut and was what were the odds in that fight? Let me think. He was close. For some reason they don't have it on best fight odds. But I want to say Pavlovich was a slight underdog in that one. Let's pull it up on best fight odds. The line closed as Pavlovich as actually a favorite over Alistair Overeem. So, I understand why that happened. It wasn't the most absurd thing to happen. It's because the guy looked great on the regionals, right? Or not the Russian scene, right? He looked great. He looked muscular. His wrestling looked good. His power looked good, his boxing, and Overeem was just taken down and pounded out by Curtis Blaydes not that long ago. He had the knockout loss to Francis Ngannou. People were questioning his chin, and people were laying that chalk on Pavlovich. But if you watch the Pavlovich that showed up in that Alistair Overeem fight, it's almost a completely different person. The fight starts and Pavlovich is immediately, he's not looking to counter strike, he's not looking for opportunities, he's looking to throw first against the world champion, world class kickboxer Alistair Overeem. He's throwing, some pitter patter punches out there. The punches had way less pop behind them. They were way less technical. He was kind of winging them out there. They were kind of just bouncing off of Overeem's guard. They weren't close to hitting him at all. Maybe Pavlovich landed one punch in the punches that he threw. And, that was a red flag. It's like, okay, he's not fighting the same type of style that he was. He's not he's not picking his shots. And then you could hear him breathing after 2-3 minutes on the microphones from a few feet away, and the dude was wheezing in breaths. It sounded like he was already gassing out 2 to 3 minutes into the fight. Then he gets taken down by Alistair Overeem, and then he's completely hopeless off his back. He doesn't really try to move at all. He doesn't try to get up. He doesn't try to scramble. He stays on his back. Alistair Overeem passes his guard, and Alistair Overeem smashes him with some ground and pound. And I'm talking smashes him, with some absolutely brutal ground and pound, where you can hear the fist bouncing off his face from the camera. Just the camera is 1 foot away from where the hammer fists are just bouncing off his face. Pretty late stoppage as well. Pavlovich took a ton of damage in that fight. Now, I don't know if Pavlovich was sick. I don't know if he was, he had crazy anxiety on his first UFC fight. He just wanted to try to get it over with as soon as he could. But he looked awful in that fight. He looked stiff. He looked scared. He didn't fight to a game plan. He didn't show any aggression, really. He didn't show any willingness to get off his back. His cardio looked bad. There's just a million reasons why Pavlovich looked bad in that fight. And honestly, I think it's because the dude was coming off of steroids, He was juiced up. He was muscular as fuck. He had a six-pack. He came in with a gut. He had less muscle. He looked out of shape, So I think that he was coming into that USADA testing pool. He got off of the steroids, and then he looked super average in that fight. Now that's enough about Pavlovich. In his fights, now we're talking with his opponents against Marcelo Golm. Marcelo Golm has got decent boxing. He's only 26 years old. He's only got 8 pro fights. He's got decent boxing. He has a really nice calf kick too. His last fight against Arjun Buhler, he was brutalizing Buhler's calf with that leg kick. I would say he almost won that fight, Golem, even though he did lose that fight, and not a robbery by any means. He came up a little bit short, but he definitely had his moments in that fight. He landed some good punches on Buhler, and he was really, really hurting Buhler with that leg kick. Buhler could barely walk. He really neutralized Buhler's wrestling a lot. He defended the takedowns a lot better. In the first 2 rounds of that fight, Buhler was trying to take Golem down, but Golem wasn't really letting him. His takedown defense was standing strong, and he was using good movement to avoid the clinch with Golem. And then Golem broke his foot in round 2, throwing those leg kicks, and then eventually got taken down and held down in round 3, and he lost the fight from that point on. But he fought good. He was fighting a dangerous wrestler. He fought Tim Johnson. He got taken down and he couldn't get off his back, and he lost that fight via decision. And he did learn some stuff from that. He definitely improved his takedown defense a little bit. He fought with a smart game plan against a wrestler, trying to take out his lead leg so he couldn't have as much spring in his step when he was going for those takedowns. He's definitely improving. And like I said, at 26 years old, there's no reason why he shouldn't. The dude is still young. He's still a sponge for information. He still should be getting a lot better. Well, we have no idea how old Pavlovich is, man. He does not look young. He looks like he's getting up there in age. Maybe 33 at the youngest, maybe. And I just don't think he's really improving. I actually think he's declining very rapidly in his fight. If you watch, like I said, I just went into it for 3 or 4 minutes, but watch his fight against that Saidikinov guy back in 2017, and then a year later against Overeem, he looks completely different. So, and after getting knocked out brutally in that last fight, I can't see him looking much better in this fight. So, that being said, the fact that Golem is a 2-1 underdog in this spot is absolutely ridiculous to me. Even if Pavlovich wins this fight, he's not going to look minus 255. I think that you should go look on your sportsbook right now, put down some units on Marcelo Golem, because I think the Golem is winning this fight. I think that he's going to be calf kicking Pavlovich early. I think he's going to be hitting Pavlovich with some shots on the feet, and I think that he will probably TKO Pavlovich with his boxing. If not, he will probably outstrike Pavlovich to a decision. I just don't think that Pavlovich will have enough spring in his step to get the takedowns. I don't think his boxing will present many problems for Golem, and I think that Golem will control this fight. He will be looking to kick that calf of Pavlovich again. If he's successful with that, I think he actually will knock Pavlovich out. Just Pavlovich will not be able to avoid the offense of Golem, and Golem will eventually test that chin. So the pick is going to be Golem to get this one done. In the co-main event of the evening in the lightweight division, we have Islam Makhachev, who is 16-1, taking on Arman Tsarukyan, who is 13-1. The opening betting line for this one was Makhachev minus 475 to Tsarukyan at plus 325. We are now seeing over on our affiliated sportsbook 5 dimes Makhachev minus 330 to Tsarukyan at plus 270. So definitely two-way action coming in this fight, but a little more on the way of Tsarukyan, and I don't disagree at all. Tsarukyan is making his UFC debut in this fight, but he looks game, man. He's I have a tough test for his first fight. Let me tell you that. Islam Makhachev, one of the best grapplers in the UFC. He's on a 4-fight win streak. He's 5-1 in the UFC. His sole loss coming by way of a knockout to Adriano Martins. That loss was almost 4 years ago. But just getting into the favorite end of things first. Makhachev's got just incredible takedowns, man. Incredible takedowns, top control. He's got just a incredible understanding of the grappling in all aspects. In submissions, in takedowns, in position, in scrambles. He's great. He's an absolute pleasure to watch. He's got good cardio. He can grapple the full 3 rounds. And he's also got good striking, too. He's definitely improving his striking. You saw that in the knockout of Gleison Tibau, man. He knocked out Gleison Tibau stiff with one overhand left hand. And that's the first time we saw that from T-Bow before. We always saw T-Bow go to that striking. We actually saw him have trouble in the striking aspect of things, like he did, like versus Adriano Martinez, but versus T-Bow, man, he looked massively improved, and he absolutely floored T-Bow across the octagon with that left hand. So look for Makhachev striking to be improving in this one, and it's gonna be this one's gonna be interesting because Tartsukin's ground game has impressed me. We haven't seen him do too much defensive grappling. In his fight against Junior Sunsao, he did get taken down, but he bounced his way back up to the feet in that one. And another worrisome part of his grappling is in that same fight with Sunsao. He went for a takedown. It looked like Sunsao defended a little bit, and then Tartsukin muscled his way to the takedown. He didn't use that technical wrestling that he should have. He kind of just used that last little bit of muscle to try to get the takedown. And Sunsao was able to reverse the takedown and get full mount on Tartsukin. And luckily for Arman, it was at the end of the round, and Sunsao did not get much damage off with it. But Tartsukin was in a bad spot there. So I think that, although Tartsukin has good grappling, he has, hit a lot of takedowns on tape. He, has a lot of good top control on tape as well. I just think that Islam Makhachev will be one step ahead of the grappling in this fight, pretty much at all times. But Tartsukin should make this one interesting on the feet. He's got real nice head kicks, fast head kicks. His most recent win over Felipe Oliveira was by way of head kick in the third round too, after a grappling heavy fight. So his cardio is on point. I'd say he's fought some pretty tough competition. He's definitely had no walk in the park, making his way up to the UFC. And it's a shame that they're giving him such a tough test in Makhachev, but I think he will be game. I think that he could possibly steal one round in this one. It's not like Makhachev is, although I did go on about how incredible his grappling was, it's not like he's 100% dominant in all of his fights. His fight with Chris Wade was actually a fairly competitive grappling fight where Wade was able to defend the submissions of Makhachev. He was able to reverse position. He was able to sweep Makhachev off of some bad positions, and it made that fight really competitive. Now, Makhachev was a step ahead in that fight, but I expected that will how this fight will go similarly. Tartsukin will be game on the ground. He will, obviously be very skilled and aware of what attacks are coming his way on the ground. But I think that Makhachev will be a slight step ahead the entire time. Now, if the fight goes is contested on the feet for a good amount of time, I'll be really interested. I think that Tartsukin actually might make this fight interesting if it stays on the feet. And if his takedown defense is good enough to, he's able to scramble out of the Makhachev's takedown defense and keep this fight on the feet, man, it'll get real interesting quick. Maybe look for a live bet. If Makhachev is not able to get his grappling off going early, look for a live betting opportunity on Tartsukin, because he could possibly look to, possibly score a knockout on the feet in this one. He's got good cardio. He's gotten late knockouts in the fight before. One thing I would say about Tartsukin that is going to be something to look out for in this fight is his spinning attacks, man. This dude loves spinning attacks. And I'm not saying that he's going to knock out Makhachev with a spinning attack. I'm saying that he's going to get taken down off of that spinning attack. He loves it, man. The spinning back kick to the body or the spinning back fist. Makhachev will time that shit. He'll be watching that shit on tape, and he will, he'll watch your feet. And then the second you put those feet in position, he'll know you're going to spin, and he will blast that double leg by the time your back is turned to him. So look out for that one in this fight. I would definitely advise Tartsukin to try to avoid the spinning attacks in this one. Try to just sprawl and brawl in this one and try to keep this fight on the feet. And I'd say that's where he has the best chance of winning this one. But I expect it to be competitive. I would not lay chalk on Makhachev at +3 or -330. Excuse me. I wouldn't. I'm not personally going to be laying that, making any stabs on Tartsukin at +270. If you were able to get him at +325 or something, that's great. But even though there's not that much of a difference in the value right now, I would say it's a pass on the Tartsukin dog line in this one. I'm just expecting a great grappling a great grappling fight in this one, and hopefully maybe a live betting opportunity as well. So the pick is going to be Makhachev to get this one via decision, 29-28. We have arrived at the main event of the evening. In the heavyweight division, we have Alistair Overeem, who is 44-17, taking on Alexei Oleinik, who is 57-11-1. The opening betting line for this fight was Overeem, the -245 favorite, to Alexei Oleinik as the +175 underdog. We're now seeing Overeem -250 to Oleinik Oleinik is at +210. So two-way action coming out on this fight. I would say more in the favor of Overeem, and rightfully so. This is Oleinik's kind of a one-trick pony. I'd say that. I'm not trying to brag, but if I could game plan a fighter for Oleinik, I'd imagine it'd be pretty easy for that fighter to execute the game plan. Mark Hunt had that game plan executed to a T before he slipped up, man. He's just not quick enough to execute that type of game plan you need to beat Oleinik at this point in his career. Oleinik is an absolutely dangerous grappler, man. He's got 45 submissions or something absolutely insane. But on the feet, man, Oleinik is as bad as it gets in the UFC. He's a slow, plotty type of fighter where he marches forward. He has bad defense. He leans one way, like it's very predictable to hit him. If any type of high level striker can see that he's leaning his head a certain direction every time they feint. And I expect Overeem to knock out Oleinik actually fairly easily in this fight. In Oleinik's last fight against Mark Hunt, he was getting his leg chewed up. He marches forward and he doesn't check leg kicks. And Mark Hunt was shutting his leg down with that calf kick early. I expect Overeem to do the same thing in this fight. Oleinik does march forward and he throws wild strikes. Sometimes he will connect on your chin, and he actually did versus Mark Hunt. He landed a left hook marching forward on Mark Hunt, and that actually was the beginning of the end for Mark Hunt in that one. Oleinik hit him with a left hook, and then he threw another strike, and Mark Hunt stumbled a little bit, and he lost his balance. And then Oleinik was able to get him down in a scramble, take his back, and choke him out in that one. So it proves that even if Oleinik's leg is getting chewed up, and even if he got hit with some bombs on the feet, he's not out of the fight, man. This dude's got a hell of a chin on him. He's tough as fuck. He's had 60 MMA fights. You're not going to get him out of there easy. And, but I definitely think that Overeem has the style and the game plan, the IQ to beat Oleinik in this spot. One of the best kickboxers that's ever fought in MMA. He's got solid takedown defense. He's got really good ground and pound. His last fight against Pavlovich, he looked great. He avoided all the attacks of Pavlovich, took him down, and just passed his guard and smashed him easily. He's really good at catching kicks too. I think that's actually how he got Pavlovich in that fight. He caught a kick and he dumped him on his back. I don't expect Oleinik to be throwing too many kicks. I actually expecting Oleinik to be the one looking to catch the kicks, looking to catch the leg kick of Overeem and maybe put Overeem on his back. But Oleinik's so slow and so old. His takedowns you can see coming from a mile away. He doesn't really set them up. He's not he does not blast in double legs or anything like that like Curtis Blades. That's where Overeem got taken down when a powerful explosive wrestler like Curtis Blades is able to take him down. Oleinik is not that type of guy. And Overeem actually has great jiu-jitsu as well. I expect, even if this fight somehow ends up on the floor, I expect Overeem's defense to be good enough to defend the choke of Oleinik or defend the, Ezekiel or armbar or whatever he's trying to throw you in. I think that Overeem, kicks that leg, throws a couple of feints, and then eventually times that perfect, big left hook that he knocked out Junior Dos Santos with. Or, he's got power in both hands, man. And even though Oleinik has a crazy chin, his defense is just so bad that I actually see that Overeem knocking him out in the first or the second round of this fight. It's just he's too predictable, man. You can't be predictable versus a guy who's had hundreds of fights, spanning the realms of kickboxing and Muay Thai and mixed martial arts as well, of course. Overeem's just he's gonna time Oleinik right away, and he's gonna be looking to put him away early in this one. I think he does so. So the pick is gonna be Overeem to get this one done by knockout. I actually think there's a little bit of value on Overeem by knockout at -162. if you're a betting man. So that's gonna do it for this card. UFC Russia. We had some crazy last names in this one. I hope I did my best with the pronunciation. We are in Russia, so expect a little fuckery in this one. Expect that we actually do have a few Russian versus Russian matchups, so I'll be interested to see how that pans out. But these judges, man, we saw in the last fight, they're dodgy, man. They will give fights to the Russians. They will screw foreign fighters out of decisions, and be wary of that. So if you're relying on any non-Russian fighters to beat a Russian or a Caucasus fighter, if they're from Kazakhstan or they're from some neighboring Kyrgyzstan or whatever, don't be relying on an American or a Brazilian to come in and beat that Kyrgyzstan, that Romanian, that Kazakhstani in this fight. So if you're relying on some foreigners to win, hopefully they get it done by finish, because you don't want to leave the fight in the hand of the Russian judges. So we got a solid card coming down this way. We got a day card kicking off at 10 a.m. I love those type of cards. Great way to start the day, and I'm really looking forward to it. And with that being said, we're just going to quickly recap the UFC 236 pay-per-view that went down this past weekend. I did recap this fight, the two co-main event and main event title fights that went down earlier in the podcast, but I'm just going to quickly breeze through the rest of the card. Starting things off, Brandon Davis getting that submission over Randy Costa. Costa looked alright, but our suspicions of him not being UFC level were pretty true. Pretty suspect cardio in that one. Botello defeated Mueller by decision. Nice win for her in that one. Jackson looked great versus Supermatot, winning a decision. Bilal Muhammad, out-wrestled for the most part Curtis Millender to a decision. I don't even remember these fights that much, to be honest. Khalil Taha floored Boston Salmon with a right hand, knocked him out 30 seconds into that fight. Max Griffin and Zelim Imadaev had a really close back and forth fun fight where Max Griffin won that fight. Pantoja knocked out Wilson Hayes. Looked great in that one. His striking looked on point. Matt Favola had a nice decision win over Jalen Turner. His wrestling looked good in that one. Nikita Krylov got the submission win over Open St. Preux. Very surprising, Krylov getting the sub over St. Preux in that one, avenging his first submission loss to St. Preux in that one. You don't see that happen too often. Dwight Grant winning a really low output, boring type of decision versus Alan Jouban, and Khalil Roundtree looking like a new and improved fighter, defeating Eric Anders with that Thai style, kicking that leg off and dropping Eric Anders 3 or 4 times in that fight, winning it's 30-24 type of decision for me, honestly. He won the first round 10-9, second round 10-7, third round 10-8 for Roundtree in that one, winning 30-24 for a massively dominant performance from Roundtree in that one. Really looking forward to seeing what's next for him. And as I mentioned before, the two back-to-back epic interim title fights that will go down in history as two of the best back-to-back fights to ever occur on the UFC's fights, honestly. And just the honor and respect between all these guys. There wasn't much shit talking to start with in this one, but all 4 guys respected each other, and then afterwards there was nothing more, just more respect, more humbleness from everybody. Just incredible post-fight interviews from both guys. Max was interviewed. I don't think they interviewed Kelvin, but they interviewed Max in this one. Took the loss like a champ. Gave the respect to Dustin, and Dustin and Max are just an embodiment of respect, honor, athleticism. Just incredible fighters in MMA. There's the 4 guys in the main event. Respect to all of them. They really embodied what MMA is all about this weekend, and it was a proud moment to be a fan of the sport, watching those 2 fights. So. With that being said, that's going to conclude the program this week. That's going to be all. We will be back next week for the UFC South Florida card, but that is going to conclude episode 57. I hope everybody enjoys the fights going down this weekend in Russia, and may the betting odds be in your favor. I'll see you guys next week.